All right. So a link to the YouTube recording stream is in AMA Archive as per usual. And we may have some people trickle in, but I'm going to jump right in. Real quick, do apologize. I feel slightly under the weather, so hopefully we get through these smoothly. But where do I even start? It has been 1 month since our last community AMA. But we are back at it, and hopefully, as you've seen, there have been a ton of new and exciting developments for Preon, Dyson, and Sphere. So let's get into it, shall we? The biggest news, of course, is that Star is now live on base via Aerodrome. This initially started with the USD BC Star LP with over $24,000 in bribes to that initial launch pool, which ended up pulling in nearly 1% of the total votes for that epoch to really start off with a bang. And still printing, yeah. That initial LP then transitioned to the USDC Star LP as the primary incentivized Star LP. And the reason for that change was because in doing so, Preon became eligible to receive a VE Aero airdrop, and this will help us build governance for the future, and so will allow us to rely less on bribing while still keeping the APR for the LP attractive. So ultimately, it's a win-win, right? It ultimately leads to more efficiency and yield for the entire ecosystem. Makes sense for us to switch over. Star as a whole has really proven its resilience as a stablecoin and has historically always been at $1, even during mass sell-offs, like with the tangible crash, for example, during the bear market. And this history of stability is allowing us to more confidently move forward now that we have established that history and are growing a solid foundation for Star. Kind of growing on top of that as a result, and in response to the very vibrant market uptrend and growing enthusiasm for Preon, which, by the way, has reached a TVL of over 7 million with over 3 million Star minted. We have adjusted our borrowing fees on Preon, as you may have seen in the announcement. So this adjustment is designed to amplify our protocol revenue in line with the increasing demand for Star, and the minting fee for newly borrowed Star has increased from 0.5% to 8%. This, of course, secures an increase in revenue for Preon and the entire ecosystem while still being highly cost-effective option in the marketplace. And know if you've previously borrowed, that increased fee does not apply to you. You have locked in that initial fee. Howdy, howdy, T1. Team Claradora, Pandu, Panda, welcome everyone. Yeah, the incentives for this epoch are quite nice. So hopefully everyone is taking a look at that and partaking if they are able to, and if it is the right decision for them. All right, remember also that a portion of collateral deposited on Preon is routed through to Aave, and will eventually be routed into Sphere Lend for additional yield to the ecosystem. So this efficiency is another element that allows us to maintain low fee structures and zero interest borrowing, and just enhances the capital efficiency of the entire ecosystem. Hey there, Oxy. All right, kind of getting into one of the main questions that I've seen coming up, which is about the borrowing fee. So first, as I mentioned, this update only applies to newly increased and or open positions. So old positions prior to the announcement are not affected. So this means that if at this point and beyond you do borrow additional Star, then the new fee structure will apply. So when you borrow, the full 8% of what you borrowed will be applied to your debt, and you will need to pay that when adjusting or closing your position. The maximum fee is 8%, and that can be achieved by having an open position for longer than 182 days. There is no limit on how long you can have a position open. So after 182 days, there is no additional fee. So if you adjust or close your position before the 182 days, you will pay the appropriate fee for the time that you were borrowing, and then will be refunded the rest. And then the minimum fee is 7 days. So if, for example, you borrow Star for 100 days, then you will pay the appropriate fee for those 100 days, and then will be refunded whatever is appropriate for the remaining 82 days. Now, I know this can be confusing, but it is set up this way to allow users the ability to access leveraging at a very low and linearly progressing cost without interest. And in addition to that, it rewards users who keep their funds deposited for longer than 182 days. So we're really trying to redefine borrowing, whereby the longer you borrow, the cheaper that borrowing actually becomes. So hopefully I could shed some light on some of those questions. Though, again, I know it can be confusing. So if you still have questions about the borrow fee, please feel free to ask them in our various chats. We'll be happy to assist. Please also be aware that there are minting caps on each Prion Nebula vault. I've seen some questions about that. These caps allow us to scale accordingly and maintain a strong peg. So over time, as star liquidity increases, the vault capacity can be increased within Prion, and new collateral options can and will be added as well. Yes, that's also true, Team Clarador. All right. So if you are looking through Dyson, you may have noticed now the addition of the Matic X WMatic collateral vault, which is the balancer LP routed and wrapped through Dyson for auto compounding and then collateralized on Prion. But please note that this vault is for the treasury only, but it does showcase yet another glimpse into some of the possible integrations within the ecosystem that allows for very seamless amplified yield. And that's really the reason why we are building this ecosystem. So I think that's a really important thing to highlight. I also do want to briefly mention that for those affected in the Dyson Concentrated Liquidity Pool exploit, who then participated in our reimbursement program, those individuals have now been issued a 100% refund. So if you have any questions about that process, please feel free to open a support ticket. But everyone who participated has now received that refund. All right. And of course, all the excitement over Prion and Star would be incomplete without also mentioning the Dyson auto compounding vaults for these LPs. So Dyson now has auto compounding vaults for both USD BC Star and USDC Star, as well as auto compounding vaults for dollar USDBC and dollar USDC, all via Aerodrome on Base. So it is worth mentioning that on Dyson there is an 8% performance fee on the Star LPs and an only 3.5% performance fee on the dollar LPs. This is compared to a 9.5% performance fee on Beefy, for example. So this really is in line with our continued efforts to make DeFi more accessible and empower all users to access these strategies at a low cost. All right. Also, just today, again, for those who are paying attention, we just released the HYUSD EUSD vault for Dyson as well, for those who are interested. So take a look at that also. Now, we have also finally been able to give you a little bit of a better glimpse into the future with our latest roadmap sneak peek, including the highly anticipated Prion V2. We will be fully rolling out Prion with its entire suite of functionalities. And alongside this, Prion is exploring the use of liquid restaking tokens, or LRTs, as collateral options, opening even deeper avenues for leveraging yield in addition to other collateral options. So these future upgrades also include further Dyson integrations with Prion, of course, and Sphere tokenomics upgrades. So although we prefer to not give an ETA because circumstances can absolutely change, the initial plans are set for these updates and features of the Sphere ecosystem to be launched before October of this year. So finally, and rarely, I have an answer, a general answer to the when question. All in all, as we move forward, please be sure to keep an eye out for new announcements, and also in the community notes section as well, which does have more regular updates about our developments and upcoming updates. All right. So that's a lot of information to unload. Are there any questions about all of that here in the AMA chat? So far, so good, hopefully. I think so far, so good. So let's keep. Okay. It's kind of like a lemon type tea. All right, let's move into some questions. So the first is from Con3353, and it's really a set of multiple different questions that I'll be able to respond generally to. And let me just kind of bullet point the different questions. Sphere team spent 1.68 million plus and over a year building this ecosystem that has generated 40K in revenue. Can the Sphere team comment on the ratio of money spent versus generated? What is the plan to increase revenue? What is the rough percent of time the Sphere team spent developing projects that are now irrelevant? Does the Sphere team consider this build cycle successful? How many products are complete and waiting for the right time to release? Definitely appreciate the enthusiasm. Certainly a lot stacked within this one post. So the treasury reports are the best tool to analyze these types of questions related to revenue, spending, and the overall health of the treasury. I think it's important to note and point out that nearly every startup will need to spend more initially before they become profitable. On top of that, we were building during a bear market when liquidity and yield was dry, so it makes for a more challenging comparison. We are just now starting to see that turn around and the yield potential come forward much more, as we have absolutely started to see with these Aerodrome vaults. There are numerous ecosystem components in the pipeline that we will delve more into as appropriate. Currently, we are most excited about Prion V2 and its integrations with Dyson, as well as the updated Sphere tokenomics. And we certainly consider this build cycle to be successful, and now can begin the process of moving into releasing these ecosystem components as the circumstances allow. So naturally, the ultimate goal, of course, is to increase revenue and the ability for us to integrate and synergize within the ecosystem. So for example, as I mentioned a bit earlier with the Treasury Prion Collateral Vault, that's a good glimpse into how we will be able to amplify yield thanks to the foundations that we have set forth and continue to build. So I know I answered a lot of those questions kind of generally and indirectly, but I think that's a good way of how I can best respond to all of your questions there, Khan. Okay. Next question was from Tsam, which is Tsam. I heard that crypto gaming and AI might become the big players in the next bull run. DeFi seems to lose interest. Not sure what you mean there. Is there any plan to cover the upcoming trends as the S&P 500 of crypto? So, just as a whole, Sphere is focused on DeFi. However, there are few things that we don't at least consider in terms of how we can best move the entire ecosystem forward in an efficient and valuable manner. And as opportunities arise, and if we see that those opportunities are a good fit for the ecosystem, then of course we will be looking into expanding into those opportunities. Cyril, more energy is required initially to start a heavy ball rolling down a hill. Less energy is required as the potential kinetic energy converts to motion. So more costs initially to get things going, expenditures reduce as revenue takes over paying for things. Very, very good way of conceptualizing it. And that's true for, again, nearly every single startup has to go through these phases. All right. Crypto IRA 3. What's going on with Penrose? Site is broken for a long time. So the team is aware of the different bugs and issues with Penrose. Sorry, did I say Prion? Penrose. Team is aware, and we are working on it. You can stay up to date with respect to those fixes and updates through the community notes. All right, Weil Harbor HD. Is there any particular reason why Lilo is not in the project team anymore? So Lilo parted ways with the team on amicable terms, and we wish him nothing but the best. Yeah, yo, Mama Fat. Prio's Prio's Penryon, exactly. Gabriel, what is the status on Sphere V3? Um, just more generally and kind of reflecting what I had mentioned earlier, Sphere tokenomics upgrades are in the pipeline, and we did have a sneak peek of that in the Sphere announcements a bit earlier this month. So take a look at that if you're interested. And right now, a general overarching ETA, with the asterisks, of course, that circumstances can change, is to have these things ironed out and released by October of this year. Good, good. Pressing forward, I'm just trying to also be mindful of the time because I know, time is very valuable for people. So let's see. Last question here from AMA Questions was from none other than T1 himself. Or herself, actually. I'm not sure. Themselves. Firstly, when new song? No new song currently in the works, sadly. Secondly, in regards to the marketplace for the engage points, are there plans to get whitelisted on Prion through other means instead of spending points? If so, then that would help me decide whether to spend my points on something else or not. So the short answer is yes, there are other means being considered. However, nothing is set in stone. So as we finalize whitelist plans, we will, of course, be able to provide more information. But it's a good question, and I think you're not the only one to be considering that. Mm-hmm. Can I have whitelist? All right. So that is all of the information I have prepared to discuss. All the different updates that we've been through this past month, all the different questions we had on AMA questions. Is there anyone here on Discord and AMA chat that has any additional questions at this time? I see a few people typing here. So you still love me. I love all of our DeFi family. I think we have a really great community. I really do. And I think things are going to get very, very cool and exciting as time goes on here. Oh, yes, Pandu. I had remembered that and then forgot to make a note about it and then forgot it. So thanks for the reminder. If you have any VE NFT positions, any voting power on different platforms, now is the time to make sure that you cast your votes so that you can get your bribe rewards. Additionally, if you have any YL Sphere locked in the vault, now is a good time to check and see if you have any unlocks coming up to see if you will need to either withdraw or relock. Will the APR for the Star USD BC pool go down this epoch? Don't think it's going to be incentivized with bribes this epoch, but looks like the Star USDC pool was incentivized. I still got my LP in Star USD BC. Yes, so I think ultimately we'll just have to see how the change in epoch comes. Yeah. Ultimately, though, as I mentioned earlier, with the way that the VE Aero airdrop works in terms of that, what Aerodrome is able to offer Prion, we are going to be able to primarily incentivize USDC Star. So it's, if anything, we're able to incentivize deeper liquidity for that LP. Whether or not, the actual yield is going to be comparable is harder to say based on the TVL and the shifts there. But a good way is to simply look at those, the incentives and then just how things change epoch to epoch. Very likely things will change over time. It's kind of that, challenge of chasing yield versus going with something that is more stable, relatively speaking, in terms of consistency. And again, it's just something we'll have to monitor epoch by epoch. All right. Good questions. Any final questions here? I love Jim Carrey. All right. Well, I do think then that it is a good time to close off the AMA. Don't want to take any more time than is needed for everyone and their day. So thank you very much for showing up. As always, if you do think of any additional questions, drop them in AMA questions, drop them in the different chats. We will be more than happy to help. And on that note, always remember that you matter for who you are. And I will see you next time. See everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.